afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Take Stock Live. My name is Sam Evans. I'm your regular host each week and lately at all different times, but we are back at our regular time today. It is Thursday, it's June 24th, and it's just 1 minute after noon. 12:01 on the East Coast here, where we're broadcasting live from TakeStock Live, hitting you live all across Facebook Live StockAbility channel and the StockAbility YouTube channel as we simulcast all across the internet. I hope you're well and happy and you've been having a good week. We are going to be back on our regular time over the next couple of weeks. Had a few changes over the last week. It's vacation time. I mean, come on, we're allowed to have a break, right? We're allowed to take a little bit of a break here and there. And because of the breakration time on here, we wanted to just kind of mixing up, but still keep the show coming to you as well. And what a great show that we got planned today. As you know, Take Stock Live is powered by StockAbility.com. And our mission, our mantra, our goal, if you like, is to just bring you education and entertainment about the financial markets. Our focus is simple. How can I create extra income from the financial markets? What is the safest way to do it? What is the best way to do it? Is it long term? Is it short term? Who cares? Right now, it's all about getting the income in and doing it in the safest possible way as well. And that's why we like to talk about whether you're new, whether you're an absolute newbie, green around the gills, beginner, maybe you're actually a seasoned veteran as well. We've always got something here as well. Now, the show is live, so obviously type in the comments and questions. I'm going to be looking at this, and as I go, we like to keep it live. As we're streaming here on Facebook as well, you can type your questions in as we do this in real time, or you're going to be looking at us live on YouTube. You can also see it that way as well. We like to keep it interactive. The other good thing about this show, guys, is it is a show that is recorded, so you can also see this and all our other shows as well on YouTube or on the Facebook Live channel of StockAbility.com. Let's take a look at what we're going to be doing today. We are going to be talking about facing and dealing with fears. Over the last few weeks, we talked about a whole plethora of different things. Charts, technical analysis. You know, I have my regular co-host Brian Dumaresque as well, which I'm giving him another break today as well. But today I have a very, very special guest who I have the pleasure of working with before. A lady by the name of Christy Geiger, who is one of the top performance coaches, renowned performance coach. In fact, she is the performance coach of the lead coach at StockAbility, Mr. Ryan Watkins, who's been a regular on my show numerous times as well. And we're going to be talking all about fear. You hear a lot right now, FOMO, fear of missing out. But how does fear impact us in the financial markets? Whether you are a trader, an investor, somebody who feels like they're missing out, there's something here for you. And what we want to do in today's show is give you a great idea of how to deal with fears. I'm an 18-year market participant now, and I can tell you right now, fear has got in the way of many a good opportunity for me personally and the 70,000 plus students I've worked with over the years as well. We want to overcome that obstacle and give you some tips and tried and trusted methods to actually help you through this as well. So that's going to be the subject of our show. And Chrissy's going to be joining me in about 5 minutes or so, not show or so. But if you are just tuned in right now, what would it be if we didn't get to take a look at the markets and see what's going on? Let's go see where we're at right now. Let's bring up the mighty NASDAQ. And I want to talk about the mighty NASDAQ, guys. Why? Because, man, that thing is mighty. Let's go full screen on here so we can see that everything on here. Man, that NASDAQ is in that monster upward trend still as well. And this is what I've been saying on the show. Be careful being a bear. Hear what I did? See what I did there? Be careful being a bear. Guys, every single major pullback in the market has gone on to make new highs. And we've had another massive gap up on the NASDAQ futures today. New highs today. Let's take a look at what those highs are. Let's zoom in so you can see it. 14,411 points and 3/4. What a move we've had on there. And we put that in just a little while ago. It seems like 14,000 has been broken. 14,000 is the number now. And after that gap back, I'm going to just say this now is not the time to jump in though. Let's wait though, if we still want to ride this, to come down a little bit. I still feel that we've got good opportunity if we wait for a little bit of a pullback. And those pullbacks, guys, have helped us every single time, giving us the smarter entries whenever we've been looking at this as well. So guys, feel on here, wait for the pullback. Tesla, massive jump in the markets today. I got a few tips I'm going to be looking at the end of the show. I've just got calls, not really any puts. Well, maybe I have some puts. We'll take a look at you. I'm going to be doing your call, my put right at the end of this show on my own. But I want to say on this, pullbacks are what I'm waiting for. The tech's bounce back. Has every other one of these markets bounced back, however? Let's go take a look. Let's go see all eyes on the Dow today. Our Dow has had a bit of a rough ride, as we know. Look at this, still playing the lackluster card, trailing behind, and this is just something about this. It seems like the fad has worn off. We're back to the high yield tech stocks again right now. Everybody wants to get back into that. Everybody's looking at that right now. And it seems like those stalwart value stocks like we see in the Dow Jones are kind of struggling a little bit right now. And I feel that right now this Dow Jones as well, which is the only thing that could stop the rise, the continued rise of the mighty NASDAQ, is this major area that we've got here, hovering around 34,000 points. Let's draw it on the board for you here. This is the big number. Let me give you this as a line in the sand, ladies and gentlemen. If we are below 34,000, I would expect continued downward pressure. If we can break higher, I'm going to expect upward pressure of the region of 34,000. That's the number right now. 14,000 is your number on the NASDAQ. 34,000 is your number on the Dow Jones. That's what we're looking at. We're getting a bit of disparity on here. Are we seeing any disparity anywhere else? Let's go look at the runt of the litter, as I call it, the Russell 2000. And you're seeing a similar thing. All that Russell has been doing, guys, since we've been talking forever is sideways chop, and here we are. Be cautious, coming into some major resistance again. What's the number score on the doors we've got to be looking at here? It's got to be 2350, 23,000. And again, there's a ton of selling pressure. I say right now, here's where we expect the selling pressure to come from on the Russell. And again, this NASDAQ, to continue higher, does need a continued support of its little brother, the Russell. And, well, it's kind of old uncle, the Dow Jones, as I call it, because it's hard to say that the Dow is its big brother. We know a massive monster of an index that NASDAQ is, and it's real powering through. But that Russell is not helping. Usually the runt of the litter, because it's always the laggard. Finally, let's look at the king at the top of the castle. And this is what's got me concerned. The mighty S&P 500, the biggest, the largest, and the best of all of it. Right now, this is the one that's struggling. All eyes on it. Let's zoom in so we can see it's a little bit clearer. Big resistance coming in again. Selling pressure around 42,500. 42.60 is your high put in today. Brand new record high. Wall Street's cheering. Woo-ha! I'm not that excited. 42.60. Notice every new high that goes in is followed by another sell-off. You don't buy the highs, guys. If you want to be safe, you buy the dips. That's how we do it. I'm not jumping in there. I need a pullback. There's too much pressure. Everything needs a bit of a pullback for the next good buying opportunity. If you're a short-term trader, that's fine. But as an investor, somebody who's looking to eke this out over a couple of days, that doesn't make any sense. I need to see this market pulling back. I want to see some continued pressure. I want to see this market coming down a little bit, guys, drifting its way down and getting into a better area like this before the next leg up. Don't get too excited about the highs. You'll be wondering, why am I the only person buying at those areas? Very dangerous thing to do. Some people say, Sam, you're too cautious. But guys, there's not really much good news to keep driving this. On the subject of news, let's go take a look at what has been potentially powering this up. Let's go back to the NASDAQ real quick. Take a look at that. And that's where you can see the monster movement in the market right now. And if we go over to the news and we just take a little look at what has been dominating the news as of today as well. Guys, it's been weak. There's really not a whole lot going on here. We had a big jump in the markets, as we know, big gap up in a lot of the markets earlier on today. And then obviously we had some economic reports coming out. So what economic reports earlier on today? We had the 10-year Treasury yield ticking lower, trading just under 1.5%. Initial jobless claims totaled 411,000 for last week, higher than estimates, but down from the prior week's upwardly revised 418,000. And durable goods orders actually increased in May by just over 2%, which was slightly lower than forecast, but better than April as well. So again, it's just, ticking along. The final revision of first quarter GDP remained at 6.4% annual growth. So kind of steady on that. And again, we've got bipartisan senators pushing a $953 billion infrastructure plan right now. Okay. Senator Joe Manchin is speaking to news reporters before attending a big meeting on this in Capitol Hill just yesterday as well. One of leading the charge, as we're seeing a lot of separation in here as both sides are trying to agree on the investment and the infrastructure plan and how much that's going to cost as well. Republicans opposed to our president trying to increase corporate tax. Literally, those guys are literally constantly negotiating to see how this works as well. How long is it going to take? Well, with politics, who knows? Nothing clear in there to help you as a trader or investor. This is why I don't focus on this stuff. It's a great read, but it's not a good guide. I'll tell you that right now as well. Interestingly enough, though, unionization seems to be on the cards at Amazon as well. Jeff Bezos himself, who's going up to space very, very soon, has acknowledged that the company could do better by its employees. Unionization is looking to be on the cards as well. We will see. I think, man, as long as it's done the right way and no one's held to sacrifice, no one's held to ransom, I think equal representation is a good thing. What is fair is fair. But from purely a news point of view, guys, when we look at this and how we're seeing this in the market, we're not seeing a whole lot. And that's really what I think the representation is. To me, when I see the pull of one way, the NASDAQ, the pull on the downside of the Dow, to me, it just reminds me of why at the moment I'm treating this as a short-term game and not a long-term game. I don't want this to be a long-term game for me right now. This has got to be something where we're taking our time each day. And over the years, as I've been looking at this market and I see today could not be better. Today could not be better to discuss the topic of fear, especially when you see what has happened in the NASDAQ today. A massive gap up, and I just think automatically how many people are jumping into that right now, worried that they've missed out, just clicking buttons, and again, talk about fear. We're going to have to look at Bitcoin a little bit. I'm going to get some opinion on that, okay? Because you see that, and actually, let's just look at it right now, actually. Let's go take a look at Bitcoin. Because while we're on the subject of fear, let's bring this up and actually go and look at the Bitcoin Liquid Index. And I think what a picture that tells. Let's go take a look at this. Look, this is it. One way you've got the stock market rally, and the next way you've got cryptos taking an absolute beating. Remember, from nearly 65,000 dollars value right now, Bitcoin trading and hovering as low as 30,000. There's got to be a lot of fearful people out there, and this is what I ask myself is, what makes somebody buy up here? Somebody paid nearly $65,000 for Bitcoin. Somebody's regretting that right now. Somebody's sitting there praying that this thing's going to come back. What have I been telling you? Last week we did a focus on crypto. I said now's a better time to get into crypto, but it required the patience to wait for that. Fear is usually, my friends, the reason why most people just jump in recklessly, okay? And it never does. Joe, one of my regulars on here, says news does not translate to the charts the way people want it to. Always. It doesn't. That's why I don't care too much about it. Couldn't agree more. Dana Joyce, love to see you in the room again. Thank you, darling, for being here. It's all about fear. And what a perfect time to talk about this. I'd love to bring today's guest on the show to talk about fear. Christy Geiger is joining us from somewhere I was actually at just a couple of days ago. Christy Geiger joining us here. Hi, Christy. From unmute yourself as well, please. Just want to make sure we're unmuted on here because I'm the guy who always forgets to unmute himself. But joining us live from Texas. How are you, Christy?
Good. That was interesting to watch what's happening in the market. Lots going on.
Oh, I know. A lot going on and also nothing going on. That's the funny thing. Like, it's incredible when you look at the press, right? And you just see all this news and then you wonder how that's going to translate itself to the market. And I thought today, doesn't it create all these feelings and emotions? And we had the pleasure of working with each other about maybe a month or two ago, 6 weeks ago. Yep. And I was like, I said I'd get you back on the show. Hopefully going to become our resident guru on this stuff because I know I need it. Fear is such a motivator or a driver on both the good and the bad in the markets, wouldn't you say? And I thought, what a great time to discuss this as well. Christy, I hear FOMO so much. Is that a term that you've always been familiar with? Because I hear it a lot now, or is it kind of just a new fad word?
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe I don't know. I'd have to look it up. 10 years, I don't know. But I do feel like it's been around a lot. Like you think about FOMO when you were younger, there was always this fear of missing out on your social network. With social media, I think there's a FOMO when you see what other people are doing. So you're right. There's always this external thing that makes us think about who we are, where we're at, and what we're involved in or not involved in. And then in your work, of course, when we start to move FOMO into our professional areas, it becomes a real thing. So I think the word kind of evolves depending on our station in life and where we're at. But yes, I think it's always been there. I don't know about the actual term.
Yeah, I know, right? Fear of missing out. It is incredible. And I'd love to get into this in the world of trading and investing shortly, Christy. But yeah, I mean, it's a very damaging thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's two sides to every coin. You know, we can say that, hey, sometimes the fear can motivate you to do the right thing, you know, and sometimes fear can motivate you to do the wrong thing. I think the thing is, it's more important is having a plan. And I'd like to focus at it on from a trading point of view, because I mean, we could spend probably 4 hours talking about this. And you yourself have got a lot of experience of working with traders, particularly one of my partners and colleagues, Ryan Watkins, you know, you are his performance coach as well. I look at a chart like this, and I'm going to share this with you, and hopefully you can see it as well. And you know, you're up at the top, and this is the chart. This is Bitcoin, okay? And you don't have to be a market expert. You don't have to be a financial guru to have heard of Bitcoin now. I mean, even my mum at 85 has heard of Bitcoin now, right? She doesn't really know what it is. But, man, the meteoric rise we saw in a market like Bitcoin, and then I look at this, and I'd love to get your take on it right now. I zoom in, and I see it. I'm going to zoom in right over here so you can see it. Bitcoin was putting a high of $64,655. Today is trading, let's just zoom it in for you, at $33,856. So it nearly lost half of its value. And the time it took, that was mid-April, and here we are literally 2 months later. Now, if you're the person buying, and I know people who've put their entire net worth into Bitcoin, okay? Their entire, how are you probably feeling right now? Because not pretty good, but it's what made you buy it there rather than wait. You know, what do you think the kind of emotions people are feeling when they saw what it was doing up here at 60,000? And, you know, what really motivated them? You know, what was going on in their brain at that particular point?
It's interesting because fear, and I think we mentioned this if anyone had caught that other training that you did a couple months ago, but really to oversimplify our brain, we have our frontal lobe and our limbic system. Our limbic system is more your emotional center. And so fear is coming from that emotional center. And so when we have fear and our emotions, that is I lost you, Sam. Are you still there?
Oh, I'm here. Okay, Focus
good.
is on you. It's all good.
Oh, gotcha.
Don't be freaked out by
perfect. Okay, so when fear comes, and you're right, there is a way that sometimes we like to think that it is good to be fear motivated. So sometimes there are things where you go to the doctor and the doctor says, you know what, your cholesterol is crazy, or your heart, you know, you're a heart attack waiting to happen. You have to stop eating the way that you're eating. And so then people experience this fear, and then because of that fear, then they change their behavior and they change their activity and their actions. But typically fear is coming from that limbic system, and our limbic system is, well, there's a lot of great things that happen in our limbic system as well. The limbic system is not where you want to be making decisions from. The frontal lobe is more where we're rational minded, big picture minded, where we're able to remember the past, be predictive to the future, to have a plan, to be more rational. So in our frontal lobe is really where you want to be making those decisions, but fear doesn't live in your frontal lobe. So especially when you're thinking about Bitcoin or trading or whatnot, and you're making a fear-based decision, that's a different kind of decision. So then if it's sending you into that limbic system, your limbic system is making a decision. Often it tends to be a more irrational decision.
Right.
And while that sounds, I think people like to think that their thoughts are in greater control than what they are. And so you feel like you're in control of your thoughts. But a lot of times when you're back into that limbic system, you're actually running on your subconscious mind. Right. You're running on negative thought. Mm-hmm. They're actually, like, when we think about our volume of thoughts every day, 80% of our thoughts are negative. So a lot of times FOMO,
80%, 80% of people's thoughts. Wow. Well, why does this always happen to me? Another bad day, right? But no, I get it, man. Sorry to interrupt you, but I didn't realize it was that. God, aren't we a sad bunch of people, us human beings, right?
Well, it's interesting because I think that, and I mean, you can test it, right? Go to the grocery store and just start talking to someone. And a lot of times when you start talking to someone, it will be about how hot it is outside, even though we were complaining about how cold it was outside or whatever it was. We tend to complain. And even when you get up in the morning, people who have positive outlooks and a growth mindset are intentional about fixing their thought in the morning.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise, if you just let your mind run you, it's negative. And so FOMO comes from that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, one, you just sounded like you're talking about my dear old mum there, you know. Oh, it's too hot. Oh, it's too cold. Like, you know what? That's all she ever says. I'm like, when are you going to be happy, mum? I love you, mum. You're not probably watching, but I never know. Even she's got an iPad. The point is that you said to me about a lot of decisions being made, you know, and the fear coming from a subconscious, right? That I can relate to. So, you know, there's an old saying in the marketplace. Anybody looking at the show right now will know this. Is if and this is in trader and investor, you know, speak. Fear drives markets down. Greed drives markets up. Most people hear it. Greed makes the market go up. Fear makes the market go down. I've always turned around and I've said, and I think we might have talked about this last time, like, I'm not a big believer in that because I feel that greed is a product of fear. You know, people get greedy because they think, well, if I don't take as much as I can now, there's not going to be another opportunity. If I don't stay with this and try and make more out of it, then I might leave money on the table. So they're always attaching a consequence to the decision that they're making. And it all comes down to fear, really. You know, you stay with things, you get greedy in a trade because you worry you're not going to make enough money, you know, or you stay with a losing trade because you're worried that it might turn around and come back and you're worried lost. I mean, fear drives everything. But what's really interesting is what you said before, and I'd like to explore that, is so much of this does, I think, come from previous experiences. Okay, and that's why I think your subconscious is. It's just learned behavior, right? This happens, you know, you make associations. So I look at a Bitcoin chart like we just looked. If we flash back over to here just a second, right, and I see this market and the highs that it made. People looking at it, all they're looking back is, oh my God, look how high it is. I could have made so much money. Oh, here we go again. I've missed out. And my mate did it. And you get to the point where it's almost like you give in because you're like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not going to be the one to lose out again. You know, that could be a trigger, right? An experience. And that's, I try to break it down. Is it, so how much are people's experiences like that triggering those fears? I mean, because it seems to me if we could get our head around what's triggering the fear, we might be able to control it. Help me out there. I mean, you're the expert. I just whims off on about it, but you know, that's how I think anyway.
Yeah. So hold that question. That's really good. So what really is triggering the fear? Yeah. I want to get back to that.
Okay.
I want to talk just about a separate thing for a minute as you were talking about that. And how we can get really focused on where you saw the peak and you're like, oh my gosh, what if I had gotten in there? Or I did get in there. What was I thinking? I violated the rule or whatever it was, right? So there's all these different thoughts that we can have going on. And sometimes it's useful to take ourselves out of our industry and put ourselves into a different industry for a moment. So I like to think about professional athletes and performance.
Okay, great.
And I want you to just pretend that you're a professional athlete in performance. Maybe you're a training Olympian or whatever.
Well, they're doing it right now. They're all getting ready for the games next month. So perfect time. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. So let's think about those training Olympians for a minute. Now, would you not agree with me that it sounds so ridiculous if that training Olympian was fixated on the scores of the people that they were going to be competing with? And they're like, oh my gosh, the guy from Korea, he just scored whatever. That's 5 points below mine. What am I going to do? And you're fixating on the things outside of yourself.
Yep.
And so sometimes we end up fixating on all these other variables rather than fixating on our game. And so when we do that, and that's where fear comes, because fear is fed by all of that, versus when we come back inside and we're like, what am I doing? What is my routine? What are my habits? What are my rhythm? What am I journaling? What am I paying attention to? And you're looking at your routine and regular behavior. And your routine and regular behavior is what wins the race, right? So that Olympic training athlete who focuses on what do I need to do? What do I need to change in my race in order to perform better? If you're competing against yourself, you keep yourself out of the FOMO, you keep yourself more out of the fear because your mind gets so distracted. And so instead of thinking about yourself and what you need to be doing, your mind all of a sudden gets very cluttered and noisy with all of this other information. And then to your other point, it begins to trigger some of those subconscious past experiences, right, where now you begin predictive. Well, I went in last time and then I lost all this money. So now this is going to happen. Oh my gosh, Should I tell my spouse that I think I made a mistake? Whatever. And you start to get all anxious and wrapped up, right? But all of that noise comes from focusing on other people's games, or in your world, on the market a bit too much. Of course, you're watching the market. Of course, we watch the scoreboard when we're playing, but everybody says you don't watch the scoreboard when you're playing. You play the game.
Right.
And at the end, the score tells it, right? So
you play the game, not the scoreboard, right? That's
right.
Guess, right.
Yeah. So do you see how that applies? How would you apply that to trading?
Yeah, I mean, completely. I mean, it's very, very easy, isn't it? You know, you can, in responses to that, I can only relate to my own experiences. But yeah, it could be hard for me. I was not a big believer in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. To me, too many unknowns. Very late to the party. That ship sailed without me. And I've owned that since day one. Okay? And I found it's easier to just get out there and say it. Good luck to the people who have made tons of money out of it. Do I think that some of it's great judgment? Do I think some of it's just good luck? Yeah, both. I mean, really. And I can then put myself in a position and go, like, and as this thing's been climbing higher, I'm like, man, wouldn't it have been nice to own that? You know, because there's been other business ideas that I've had that I didn't follow through with. And, you know, so I can see that. And I think the difference I've got is when I look at this market now, and again, let's go back over to this chart so we can see it. When I look at the market up here right now, and I see where it was, and I see where it is now, you know, here's where it was, and here where it was now. You know,
right.
the thing with that is, I suppose I've trained my mind to understand that this experience that I might be having now is completely independent of previous experiences.
Right.
You know, because yeah, I've made mistakes. Haven't we all made mistakes? But I've also then, I think it's about remembering, I've also made mistakes of getting into positions where I've bought up here and then I've watched the market completely collapse and I've lost a ton of money. And then I've been hoping it's going to go back up. And guess what? It just kept going down, going down, going down. So I think I come from a different point now. I look at it up here and I didn't see, oh, missed opportunity. I see, hey, you know what? This thing's getting some traction. I think, though, I want to wait for it to come down a little bit, and I would like to buy at a lower point, which is what I was actually talking about on the show last week, when my risk is lower. And if I'm wrong that way, but that's comes from a different experience, because that's paid me very well. I think what I've tried to do, Christy, is just look at different experiences and say, hey, the actions I've taken in the past, what was the results? Doesn't matter why I feel like that. It's not why I feel like it. It's what happened after doing something.
Right, exactly.
You know, because like again, it's a hard one. You know, this is simple stuff. You said to me about the experiences. I mean, if as a child, I was actually talking to one of our coaches just about an hour before you, and we were chatting about experiences. And you know, he was talking about how when he was a kid, he was bitten on the hand by a dog, and for like the next 15 years, he was scared of dogs. It took him a lot, and he's like, every dog just brought back that experience. I look at Bitcoin, and it's no different. It's like, man, if the dog that bit you was, hey, I missed out on opportunity in the market, you're going to keep thinking, well, I'm going to keep missing out if I don't do something different. And I think that's it. But I think you have to have both experiences, you know, but also the competitive side of it. Because then again, back to your point you said, looking at your competition, am I in it's not the Olympics, right? I'm not in competition with other people. There are people who have made so much money. I know people who've made millions of dollars out of cryptocurrency, and I didn't.
Right.
But that's their experience, not mine, right? So I know now that the money that they've made is completely independent of the money I make or lose when I get into it. And I think it comes back to the great sports analogy. You know, at the end of the day, you're only competing against yourself, aren't you? How important is it to realize that? We're really only competing with ourselves, aren't we?
Well, and it's unfair because what is unfair about that is where this intersects with fear, is that we get afraid when we start thinking that we are on an equal status with other people. So then they're playing their game, you're playing your game. When you start messing up your game is when you start fixating on their game.
Right.
So again, and sometimes we can think of the market almost as as a competitor. So instead of focusing on your game, you start fixating on the market. So you actually take your eye off the ball and it's confusing because in a way, the market can be your ball, but it's really not. Your market, your game, your ball is how you're playing the game. So when you start fixating on the market, that is where fear creeps in and we get overwhelmed, we get confused, we get conflicted. That's where all the noise starts coming in. And going back to your other question, is it okay if I loop back to your original question?
Yep. Yes.
All right. So one thing that I love out of neuroscience, and it's by a guy named David Rock, and he has a book, Your Brain at Work is a great book, really to understand this concept more. But there are 5 things that kind of will take us into that limbic system mode that trigger us. And so you were asking, now I lost the exact question, but what kind of takes us into that fear place?
Right. Yeah.
And so this acronym SCARF is what gets you into the fear place. So these are 5 things that will help you to either stay in your frontal lobe, which is a very calm, rational, person able to navigate your business, to play your game, right? Or you can get triggered by these 5 things, and then you kind of go into the ocean of, trying to swim against the current when these happen, because now you're in your limbic system. So that the acronym is SCARF. So there's 5 things. SCARF.
Okay.
SCARF.
All right. You know what I'm going to do while you're talking about this? I'm going to try and write it on a whiteboard as we do it. So I'm going to write this up. All right. Let's test the technology, shall we? So let's go over to here. And what we're going to do is go make a nice whiteboard. Okay. So let's do this. So and I'm writing with a mouse here, everybody, so it's not as easy. Scarf is what you wear
signing your tax forms,
like you do around your neck, right? Is that correct? Scarf, yeah. All right, that's it. Let's do it.
And
cool.
How I actually remember that too is I don't really wear scarves a lot, but if you ever had a scarf on,
you don't need to in Austin, Texas. It's too hot.
Right? Yeah. Who needs a scarf? But let's say that gets caught and your scarf is too tight. You are choking.
Right.
And that's exactly what happens. When you're scarfed, you're choking. And so when we get caught in fear, when we get caught with FOMO, whatever, we're choking. And it's because often we get scarfed. So here's the 5 things that cause us to choke. And really it moves us into this irrational mind rather than our rational mind. It moves us out of our place of knowing, where we really access our gut knowing, our gut knowledge, our head knowledge, and we move into this emotional place that is not as stable. So number 1, S is status. And you can brainstorm with me here how you may see that playing into trading. So status typically is about when we feel lesser than. And so, for example, like you were saying with Bitcoin, you may be aware of somebody who is like, oh my gosh, you got to get into Bitcoin. I've made so much money. And they're really excited about it. And so you're like, wow, okay, so I'm going to get in there. And then you lose money and you're like, oh my gosh, suddenly you're feeling inadequate. You're feeling unworthy. You're feeling lesser than.
Yeah.
You're feeling incompetent. Those are like status triggers.
I can tell you right now, as somebody's been doing this a long time, I've published things, I've got a patent pending in this, and I missed the boat in it, so there's a bit of me like, wow, how did I miss that? But then that's life. I've missed the boat in other things, but that can lead someone, I think, to then prove to themselves, well, I can still make something out of it. But that could get you into a dangerous situation, right? Very dangerous situation. So,
perfect. Yeah. So status trigger, when we're in that mode, we're feeling under. I sometimes will have my clients actually lay on the floor, because that's like where they've got their head, their emotions, their mindset is on the floor, versus to be over, I'll have them stand on a chair or a desk or a table and look down at their situation. Because in status, we emotionally, mentally, and physically put ourselves underneath. And then we feel the burden of trying to catch up, which is a lot of the FOMO thing, right?
Yeah,
where we feel like we're missing out. We feel like we've made bad choices. But what's really happening is our ego is massively tied up in there. And anytime our ego is making choices, we're also in trouble, because our ego actually is making choices for us to look good, to feel good, whatnot, which isn't necessarily the best choices. So ego is tied up also in this whole limbic system.
Let's write that down there, ego. So check your ego at the door. There's one way to not have this too tight and strangle yourself. Okay.
Love it. Okay. So C is for certainty.
I love this. Go on in.
Certainty. We've seen it so much with COVID, right? Like in the last year and a half with COVID, where people haven't known what to expect, or as they feel like things are returning somewhat to what they knew. That really is about certainty. And so it brings a sense of peace and calm, really a returning up here to the frontal lobe. When we have uncertainty, we're back here in the limbic system. We feel more anxious, restless, uncertain. So what happens is when the market, now you guys kind of live in a little bit of uncertainty. Yep. You don't know what the market is going to do. No. Every day it's a new surprise. What's going on? What's happening? Why is that happening? And so when we have uncertainty, it is something that can trigger that limbic system, where we feel more unstable, and it can make us feel anxious, and it can make us feel it is prime ground for fear.
It really is, yeah.
Right. And with COVID, we saw that it is prime nurturing ground for fear, versus when we can look at what is certain. So for example, if you have a trading plan, if you have a trading routine,
and
if
you back tested it, that's one of the things. I've back tested it and I know it works. I know it's not going to work all the time, but I know if I let it work, it can work, right? That's
exactly. Same thing happens in sales. Sometimes when people are like, oh my gosh, I haven't made a sale, I don't know, do I need to get out of this business? No, it's always a numbers game.
Getting through the no's. You got to get through the no's to get to the yeses, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. And all of that is around certainty. So what happens is when our brain fixates, and remember, because we have 80% of our thoughts being negative, so it's likely that our brain can fixate on those negatives. It's likely that we can even scarf ourselves. Nobody else did anything. We scarfed ourselves. So all of a sudden we're fixating on uncertainty, and that uncertainty causes more uncertainty, and then we snowball it. Versus if you can get yourself back up here, what do I know? Have a system, have a routine, use your journal, have your trading plan, because all of those things provide certainty. So if you have certainty, you're up here. Uncertainty, you go back here into your limbic system. What do you think about that in relation to trading?
Well, that's great, because I've actually turned around and said nobody knows what's coming next, and anybody who says they do know what's coming next in the market's an outright liar.
Right.
So I think this is a good point on here. How do you check your ego? How's it? You know, this in the room. That's great, Peggy. We'll talk about that one in just a second. Hopefully you can catch the recording of it. But to respond to this one of certainty, I've always turned around and said, you've got to be certain of the uncertainty in this environment, i.e. you're going to win, you're going to lose, but you have to have certainty in a system and know that system's not going to work 100% of the time. And that can be very difficult for a lot of people, because, you know, most of us know that we're going to have food on the table tonight. We know we've got a roof over our head. We know we've got a comfortable bed to sleep in, but we know when we go to the market, we might make money, we might not. So I think that the certainty for me has to come from, hey, I've got a fixed amount I'm willing to risk. I know when to enter and exit based on the back testing and the journaling I've done. And then I'm certain in that. And that allows me to be certain of the uncertainty. And you've got to be comfortable not knowing when you're going to win and when you're going to lose. Because I've always said this, I could have 20 winning trades in a row and I'm not complaining. If I have 20 losing trades in a row, I am. You know, but that's just, you don't know what way it's going to go, right? That's why the winners seem to be bigger. So I'd say the plan is the only way to get it. I love that. Be certain in the uncertainty of trading, you know?
Right.
All right.
Right. And the way that you have certainty is through a plan. Maybe, you know, we have ego up there with status. Maybe for certainty, it's plan, because it really is having that plan. I think another thing that you brought up too, and I don't know how you coach your people, but a lot of times too, we create more uncertainty for ourselves than we need. So sometimes we have to back up and go, okay, do I have my reserves? What am I trading on? Too, right? So sometimes it's how we're running. Business owners will sit there and not pay themselves, and they will take loans, and then they have massive uncertainty when their business isn't doing well because they have no margin. Right. So sometimes if we're living without margin, we actually create more uncertainty. So not only is there certainty and uncertainty actually in our trading, but sometimes we have to look at our canvas, our foundation that we're working from. And perhaps we've created a lot of uncertainty there, which then can create more volatility and fear for ourselves in trading. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So giving yourself, like I say, margin, a little bit of a buffer. That's I like that an awful lot. I think also what people do is they over their position size is an issue for a lot of people as well. Position size, you know, they trade bigger than they can handle and stuff, you know. And I say, look, if you can't make money risking a small amount, you're not going to make money risking a large amount. And then for me, the certainty can then come from saying, hey, I know I can get this wrong a few times. I'm not going to blow up. I'm not going to lose. So giving yourself some breathing space is very, very key on that. Hollis was just saying, a good question coming in live on here. We've been taught that trading is about assessing probabilities, not assuming certainty. I'm glad you distinguish between them being certain about trade outcomes. You can't, versus being certain and secure in following your plan. Absolutely. Love that comment. That's exactly it. It is probabilities, but I'm certain that the probabilities will work in my favor because I've tested it enough. You know, I mean, I've got like decades worth of material, you know, and that's why I just stick to it and do it. So Become certain in the uncertainty. Loving that very much. All right, well, that gets us to A then. 3 more to go. What's A for?
All right, real quick. A is autonomy. And autonomy is about our ability to have our own independence, our own independent thought, and our own independent freedom and power. You see so many people today that freedom is a top value for people. We want freedom. We want autonomy. Right. And so this autonomy piece is really huge versus when we feel like suddenly we don't have autonomy. Sometimes we feel like, someone might even get triggered and be like, well, this is your trading plan. I need to figure out my trading plan.
Oh, I've heard that one before. Just do what I tell you to do. And they're like, okay. And then they go and do something completely different. And they wonder why they're not having success because they want to own it. That ties back into the ego a little bit, doesn't it?
It does. It absolutely goes into the ego. And there's an interesting way that you can kind of play with that, because with our autonomy, again, it's much like certainty. We look at where we can have the autonomy, because when we feel like we are kind of caged in, or we feel like we've lost our autonomy and freedom, then we go into that limbic system and we become rebellious. Right. And rebellion is where we are tempted to break the rule. We're tempted to buy high. We're tempted, or whatever it is, right?
Because we're like, shouldn't. Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, even though we know we shouldn't, we do it. And it does, look, I can actually relate to this hugely. I mean, this is a great one. I love this one. How I can relate to this one is that with the autonomy thing, when I started learning, I had some incredible teachers and mentors, and they taught me their strategies, and I did it. And then they worked really well, but I wasn't satisfied, because I was like, yeah, but I feel like I'm a cheat because I'm just doing what they do, and I want to take ownership. And then I spent years formulating my own way. Now, by the way, I wouldn't change any of it, and I formulated my own way, and it works very, very well, and I'm very happy with it. But looking back on it, could I save myself years of frustration and torment? Yeah. So I'm a bit like, how much of that, was my ego? But again, I think I can tie that back again. I think all that this is about knowing where you're coming from, right? Because I look back and I know where it comes from. Inadequacy things, wanting to be noticed. Am I good enough? Being proud, hard work. Is it hard work if I just do what somebody else tells me to do and don't think about it? It's funny. It's about the upbringing. When other people come in and go, yeah, man, I was taught to just literally, take the easiest route I can take. And that was what you said. I come from a world where my dad was like, Dad, son, you got to work hard. Nothing comes for free. So I remember in my brain, I'm like, well, I need to figure this out myself, even though they'll teach me the basics, because it's not that easy. Life's hard. Back to your programming, right? All comes back to that program. Thanks for that one, Dad. Bless you. Oh, I like that one a lot. So so I think we get away because we want it. We want to be, listen, let's be honest. Again, I can only relate this. We're proud people. We've been raised to be first, to be winners, to do well, to make money, to not lose, to get things right. And who wants to turn around and say, hey, I've done really well out of trading. I earn a 7-figure income every year. It's really good. But it's nothing to do with me. It's all to do with the person who taught me. No one's going to say that. They want to say I work hard and I put my time in. Actually, that's the irony. You do have to work hard and put the time in. And the irony to me is actually it can be really hard to follow someone else's way. You still have to put the work in. But for me, I think if you're pride and so on, you want to own it. And especially if you've got great results, who doesn't want to take credit for those results, right, Christy? I mean, that's how I would interpret it.
Right. Well, and you said it really well. I do think it is about humility. Yep. And your key line that you said just a little bit ago is where it's coming from. And to be able to discern where it's coming from, because it's true. Like, we do need to have some level of freedom and autonomy. However, it's where is it coming from? Is that coming from my ego? Is that coming from me trying to be a maverick and stepping out from what we know is tried and true? Yeah. So if you can take the tried and true and then you build on it in your own unique way, that is different. That's coming from up here. That's strategic thinking, your own personality, your own style, your own rhythms, your own stamp on it, so to speak, versus when it comes from that under place of fear, or it comes from a place of, rebellion. Those are ego places, and that autonomy is going to get you in trouble. That is the school of hard knocks. Oh, yeah. Not because you were working hard to get ahead, because you had to get some hard knocks to learn, like, okay, let me get back on the tried and true path.
I don't know. I just write, don't get choked. There you go. I've written it on here as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so go ahead.
Let's go to R then, okay?
Perfect. Yep. Okay, so R is this one is relatedness. And relatedness is about being part of a tribe, being part of a community. I'm sure it's why people come to you. It is comforting to be part of a community. It's comforting to see everyone learning together, to grow together, to have the highs, to have the lows. It's a big deal to be part of a tribe. And so when we feel part of a tribe and part of something, we stay up here. When all of a sudden we feel that we are not welcome, or that we are in trouble, or that we are excluded or isolated, we come back into our limbic system, we get scarfed. Now with trading, how do you see this relating?
Herd mentality to a degree. I mean, I think it's differentiating about who you would pick the people to be. Like, we all like to be part of something. I think trading is one of the loneliest businesses around, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I only do it for maybe an hour a day, and I focus on other things. That's one of the reasons why I like teaching and talking about it and doing it, because it is quite a lonely business. But I've also learned the hard way that you've got to go by your rules. If you follow what other people are doing, you can have that danger of the herd mentality, and you're the last, goat at the end of the herd, or the last, steer at the end of the herd, falling off the edge of the cliff. I think it's about making yourself, you're a sum of the people you spend your most time with, aren't you? So I think what I would take from that is being aware of, are you mixing with the right people? That's how I could say it. I see it right now, and I'll be outspoken. I don't care, I look at the Reddit communities and all that faff we saw with GameStop and all that, and people chasing price, and the people who got destroyed and burnt because they're all on a forum in their gang. But, if one person's doing it, doesn't mean everybody else is going to do it the same way and have the success. I've always found that, not blindly following, but rather than saying, hey, I don't like to blindly follow. I like to stand by the side of somebody and say, hey, I'll walk with you, not behind you. Because if I stand next to the person in part of a group, then I can see where I'm going to and make my decision of whether I'm going to step off or step on. So I think that's the power of a community of like-minded people in that respect, support and so on. Because we need that. We crave that, right? We all want to be loved at the end of the day. We all want to be liked. We all want to be reassured. This business, though, 9 out of 10 times I've found when I've got my own back and I've got my own way of thinking, I'm more than fine, and I would pass that up. I'll be selective on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. And it's interesting, as you were talking, it reminds me of this is a little bit different from relatedness, but related into what you were saying, is that we do have this phenomena that is a little bit like herd mentality, but what it is in our brain, we actually have the ability to be influenced inaccurately and make decisions based on that. And there is a study that was done numerous times where they would take 30 people standing in a line. The person at the end of the line was the only person who was the real test. Everybody else was part of the experiment, meaning in on the thing, right? So there's 3 lines, A, B, and C. One of them is clearly shorter, one's longer, and one's in the middle. And they said, which is the shortest line? And so let's just say that A was the shortest line. So everybody comes up and they all say C. So they come up and they go, C. Yeah, for sure, C. And every 29 people say C. The question is, does the person at the end of the line say A because it's clearly shorter, or do they say C because that's what everybody else said?
Right.
Now, humanly, we think that people cave under peer pressure because, and I don't remember the statistic of the number of people, but statistically, people will say C, not A. Right. And you will actually violate your own knowledge and your own intelligence to know that A is the shortest line. Now, we think that that's about peer pressure. It's not. There's actually a piece in your brain that you will start to reshape your view of reality by reoccurring affirmation of a point of view, which is why bias is such a big topic in our world today, because bias actually begins to reshape your brain and what you see and how you see things, not because of peer pressure, but because you literally have changed what you think and what you literally see. So by the time that some people get up to the front, they literally have convinced themselves that for whatever reason, because of the angle, because of the light, C is the shortest line. And they can literally say with all honesty, lie detector, C is the shortest line, and it's not. But I think this relates to the markets too, because we can be influenced by that. So if you see everybody buying and it's at the top, you're like, oh my gosh, I think it's just going to keep going up. I really need to get in because I read on it and I think this is going to keep going up. So I need to get in. I know I'm not supposed to. I know I shouldn't. I know it's breaking the rules, but your brain changes to see what you want to see when you have enough affirmation, which is a really big deal.
It's huge. I love that. I love that example. I love that. And, here we say on here, you have to be selective. There are so many tribes. Holly's just saying there are so many tribes of uncredited pundits on social media, TikTok, Facebook groups, spouting stock tips and random advice to try can be downright dangerous. Yes, they can indeed. You know? And, and it's so funny. I've often in my own career given my opinion rather than advice, and it's been the opposite of what everybody said, and they've been like, you're an idiot, you're crazy, and I end up being the one who's right. And they're like, well, how did you come up with that? And I'm like, I'm just giving an opinion. There's not any ego in you buying into what I'm saying. I'm just giving an opinion as well. But it's really interesting because then people sometimes, like you said, I've been on shows where, in forums, on international shows where on round tables where I've been the only one saying one thing and everyone else is saying their version of the same thing. And it's like people are scared to do it and stuff. So,
okay, that right there is relatedness.
Yeah.
Because we have this desire to be relatedness, sometimes we betray ourselves and our own gut and intuition, which you're not. But it's a great example to lean more into the autonomy rather than the relatedness, because the relatedness, sometimes we get scarfed by betraying ourselves.
And I'm happy to say I got booed off of a stage a couple of times as well. But guess what? I called it right. So whatever, I don't care. I got nothing to prove. I just like to have fun and give my opinion. If it helps, great. And if it doesn't, well, find somebody else's opinion. That's how it's got to be. All right, last one, F.
Okay, last one.
What do you got in store for us with F then, Christy?
Okay, fairness is our last one. And people, human beings, and you think back if you have kids or you think back to being a child, we all get really hung up on fairness. And so if we feel like things are fair, we are good to go. We stay up here. The minute we feel that something is unfair, we come over here. Whether it was our parents saying we need to get off the playground, and we're like, wait a minute, this is unfair. You told me all week we're coming to the playground and we've only been here 5 minutes. It's not fair. And we lose our mind. Let's go back to trading. How does fairness apply in trading? Do you see how it relates there?
Why does it always happen to me? Why is it every time I get into a trade it loses, and all the trades I don't take they win? Why do I always get stopped out and then it moves in my favor? Nobody takes any accountability. I hate the universal qualifiers, I think they're called, of always and never. It always happens to me. I never get a winning trade. Always? Never? I hear that one all the time. It's a constant. I hate universal quantifiers, I believe they're called. Always and never. Right?
That's good, because what you just called out there was a great way to notice when that fairness trigger is going off. And so when I'm scarfed, when I'm triggered by fairness, I may be using those words always or never. I'm pretty sure, I think we might use those in marriage.
Oh, I think we do them a lot in marriages and relationships and friendships. Oh my God, brothers and sisters, siblings.
Yes, business partners, whatever it is. But when we get in that fairness trigger, one of our jobs is really to recognize, when are we getting triggered? When do we get triggered by fairness? When do we get triggered by relatedness, autonomy, certainty, or status? And so the more we can actually study, it's an interesting thing. Managing our mind is as important as developing your hard skill of trading, because this is the soft skill of trading, is managing your mind. So if you actually took a chart and put scarf down the middle, and you put on the left side, when you are up here, what is good status? What is your status solid? Versus on the other side, you put when do you get triggered, because you have to begin to recognize your triggers. So I love the example you just gave of saying always or never. So as soon as I go, this always happens, I can instantly catch myself that I may be in a fairness trigger. And where am I coming from is my limbic system, my emotional center, which is more irrational. And I need to do some mindfulness, some meditation, read something positive, go back to my plan in order to return up here to my frontal lobe, because my frontal lobe is where I'm going to come back to my rational mind, my plan, my bigger picture thinking. Now, I'm not making the limbic system bad. We need our limbic system. Attached right underneath it is our subconscious mind. but we can work with that in order to keep it positive. So we want to use SCARF to be positive. Like, I am learning trading and I am making good decisions. I have a plan that guides me and that gives me certainty. I'm able to make my own choices. I'm sitting here at my desk when I want to sit at my desk, and I made that choice. So I have autonomy. I'm part of a community that makes good choices, but I also am responsible for my own choices. Whatever, like, you kind of make your own affirmations. You have your own mindsets that help you to stay up here and recognize when you get triggered back there, because anything that's coming from back there, when you're coming from SCARF, you're making decisions under it. And you might as well just shut it down. Like, stop and walk away.
I love the SCARF. I'll add this one thing on that, on the fairness. The amount of times I've lost count. Maybe I've got some students watching the show right now. Every time I do this, this happens. It's so frustrating. Whenever I do this, that happens. What do you think about that? My simple response is, well, stop doing it then. There you go. And they look at you and they're like, oh, stop doing it then. Clearly what you're doing is giving you the same result over and over again, so try something different. It's not rocket science, but it's incredible how much, I mean, this is all about accountability at the end of the day. Let's bring that back up right now. Awesome. My writing, I hope, I could have done it. I did it as kind of my on-the-fly whiteboard. SCARF, don't get choked by the scarf, okay? Status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, fairness. How much are you being driven by those underliers? I've never heard that before, and I've done a lot of studying and reading, as you know, and I've never ever heard that before. Honestly, I love it. Thank you. Seriously, sincerely, that's like, I've loved that. That's been amazing for me. It's something I think everybody looking at the show, looking at this live or recording, great comments coming in, appreciates everything you shared with us, Christy. I guess the thing is, tell us a little bit about how, what you do as well here. So tell us a little bit, what are typical clients you work with? How can someone reach out to you? I've got some information I can share with everybody as well.
Sure, good. Yeah, I work with leaders, business owners, executives, and leaders. For you, you're generally a group of independents, which is great. But people who I work with are those who want to be responsible for themselves, their choices, their future. They have dreams and ideas for what they want, and they're here. And what we do in coaching is figure out where do you want to be and then close the gap is all we do. I work with people internationally. Most of my clients are in the United States, but I do have a handful of people overseas, which is really fun to be international. Usually I'm working on the phone. Sometimes we do Google Meets or Zoom or Skype.
Awesome.
Calls typically are weekly or bi-weekly, because really it is what coaching is your strategic thinking partner, and you're checking your mind. We are not able to check our own minds because we're familiar with our thoughts. There's another statistic about 90% of our thoughts yesterday or today are the same as yesterday. Right. And so a lot of times we have the exact same thoughts. And like you said in your example, when someone says, I always get this, and then you say, stop doing it. A lot of times we continue to do the same thing, which is why that, insanity, the definition of doing the same thing and expecting different results, that saying comes from our human behavior, that we tend to do that. So coaching is really checking your thinking. It's working through your thinking, your activity, your performance, your behavior in order to get different results. Because a lot of times we're here, we want to be here, but we keep doing the same things and we stay here. So we have to change something in order to get ourselves here. And coaching is that strategic person to be with you on the journey. You have the answers. I'm not a consultant. Right. I'm not a counselor telling you what to do or fixing you. We're asking questions to move you as you shift your behavior, your thoughts, and your actions to get different results.
I would describe you as a living, breathing catalyst for change. There we go. That's how it would be.
It.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to put your details up here and share them with everything as well. Synergy Strategies, Christy Geiger, all her details here, Christy at synergystrategies.com. You can check out the website, www.synergystrategies.com here as well. And again, you can also reach out to the show directly to us if you want to kind of reach out to Christy. I highly recommend it, guys. Christy is the personal performance coach of Mr. Ryan Watkins, and you wouldn't be doing yourself any harm by taking the leaf out of the big man's book on that respect as well. If you don't get this jotted down now, I will be sharing these details again as well. What an absolute absolute blast of a time on there. I mean, I've enjoyed this so much as well. Thank you for absolutely everything that you shared with us. Would you be happy to come back on the show again in the next month or two? That'd be lovely.
Love to.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, listen,
fun.
I ended up taking a little bit longer, but that's good. It's my show. I run it on my rules. So thank you for all of that. Super appreciate it, Chrissy. Let's connect real soon, okay? Thank you so much.
Good.
Thanks.
You. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Christy Geiger of Synergy Strategies here, performance coach. I love having her on the show. Always awesome. I've been reading and studying psychology stuff for so long now, and just every time I talk to her, I just get something else out of it. I hope you guys got as much out of that as I did. I can genuinely say I really did as well. It doesn't leave me a lot of time on here to take a look at the quick charts, but let's go take a look at the charts and see a very quick your call, my put. And then when we've done your call, my put, let's just talk about what we got coming up at StockAbility. What's coming up on StockAbility? What can we share? What's the latest things that we got going on? I will share them with you when we come on here. So let's go over to the charts and take a look and see. Here we go. So one of my calls on here, what I'm liking, I still believe in it. Guys, Netflix. I was looking at this in the sessions just yesterday as well. Netflix, I gotta say, based on the current price action I'm seeing on here, I'm seeing a whole lot of wide open space on Netflix here with a major fade gap resistance area here up at 550. Trading right now at 517. Key level yesterday breaking was 513 and change. I gotta say right now, if we could just get a little bit of a push on here, let's zoom in on it, little bit of a push and a pullback, I'll be liking to try and ride that thing. I think it's got about $40 or $50 to the upside on here. However, I would say it's probably going to come under a little bit more challenge. Once again, looking at this weekly chart, we've got to get through this hurdle, but I think 540 is the area on here on this weekly chart, the upper part of this range. I am bullish on it right now. I want to wait for a pullback or aggressively getting a bit of a more of an aggressive breakout on this trade, but my call for this week is Netflix. I'm probably going to sit on my hands today. I don't really want to take anything going into the weekend, but Monday I will be looking for that. A lot of my students have been doing very well on Tesla over the last couple of days. Coach Graham enjoying some awesome kind of movements on there. Loving what Tesla's been doing, but I tell you, it is getting to the point where maybe it needed this rally, but we are going to be coming under a lot of selling pressure here. Here's the area, I think, a little bit higher before we go into it right now. Let's zoom in and see. Looking at this particular region here, let's zoom in and see what we can see on here. I want to just get the numbers on the scores on the doors here where we're looking at it. Looking at this, probably around the $750, $800 mark on Netflix. Let's actually kind of redo this. Moving in here, but massive amount of resistance in this whole 750 region on Netflix. I reckon we've got about $50, $60 of upside to go right now. I think it's worth buying pullbacks on it. There's a nice little area bound low around 660, but around that point, I would be taking profits. This 750 area for me is a bearish area that I will be looking at very interestedly on Tesla. So bullish on Netflix, coming up to being bearish on Tesla in the next week or two. They are my calls on the market. And at the moment, coming into the summer, I wouldn't be surprised to just see this thing drifting higher. Even on that Tesla trade, be smart on the profit taking. We have established a range between 750 and 550 now. They are the areas in question. If you are looking for more help and just a different take on the market as well, let's show you where you can go. Go over to StockAbility.com. Here's the website on here. Scroll down to the bottom. You know the drill, guys. You'll see all our coaches, Dan, Sam, Ryan, myself on here, and our upcoming webinars. We have got our just recently had, which you can still register for right now, a focus on Forex with Coach Alexander Perner. Coming up in a couple of weeks here on July 13th. Really looking forward to this one. A complimentary webinar on how to become a funded trader, the path to become a funded trader. I don't have enough money to trade. I will show you how you can get enough money to trade and some of the things you need to be doing to get trading with somebody else's money. And then a few days after that, we've got our very first crypto webinar, how to trade crypto without owning crypto. Go ahead and register. We'd love to see you there as well and give you a little bit of an idea of what that's all about. In the meantime, if you've got any questions, comments, and want to find out more about what we do, we have a whole team of wonderful student coaches who can help you every single step of the way. Guys, that's how that all works there. Man, what a fantastic show we have had. I've enjoyed myself so much on here. I got a lot out of that. And, you know, Christy, just thank you again. You know, this show is available as a rerun, as a recording on Facebook Live or the StockAbility YouTube channel. Guys, don't go ahead. I never ask this, but thank you, all of you regular viewers. Go ahead and like and share and subscribe. You know where the buttons are. Everyone else tells you to do it. Now Sam's telling you to do it. Go ahead, like and share. We are going to be back next week at the same time, Thursday, noon Eastern time on Facebook Live and YouTube for another edition of Take Stock Live. More information, more fun, just getting it out there and just doing our thing as well. Guys, my name's Sam Evans. Thank you for viewing as well. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next week for Take Stock Live. Thank you.